If not, I'll just be talking to a blank screen with no one knowing. So thank you very much, thank you. So yes, my name's Lucy. I'm a final year medical student at Manchester. So it's been a bit of a while since I've been in your position, and I'm based this talk off the idea that most of you will be coming either from school or college. If there's anyone that's in the chat today that's a graduate or anything like that, I've got questions at the end, so feel free to ask about that. There's lots of different ways of getting into medicine, so I'm just here to help. Again, I'm trying to make this talk as helpful as I can for you. I try to put in things that I found difficult to understand when I was trying to apply for medical school. So I hope this is really, really helpful. Medicine is a fantastic degree. It's brilliant. You get to see so many things. It's a brilliant, brilliant course and an amazing career if you guys do decide to go into it. I'm going to very much do a Chris Whitty style, I'm afraid, Matthew, and ask for the next slide, please. Thank you. So I've tried to make it very, very simple and just put it into stages of how the application process works. So the first stage would be choosing a university, and it's really important to find a university that you're happy to go to, as most medical degrees are 5 years. So try and pick somewhere that you're happy to live in for 5 years. Some are shorter, some are longer, but generically it's a 5-year degree. Then once you've decided which university you want to go to, most of us will have to sit this exam, either called the Ucat or Bmat, which some of you may have heard of. I will go over this in another slide, but basically it's an exam that you have to sit on, where it's very similar to those of you who have done your driving theory test. You go to that kind of centre again, have to pay a fee for it. It is a bit of a pain, unfortunately, but it's one of the exams that you need to do for your application. And then next stage would be writing your personal statement. Medicine courses, honestly, don't really read it that much, but it's something that you do have to submit, and it does need to be good. Some universities will actually read it, but majority don't. And failing that, even having your personal statement written will be really helpful in planning in your mind what you want to say in the next stage, which would be your interview. And then again, I have a slide that goes over all of these in more detail. Okay, could I have the next slide, please, Matthew? So, unfortunately, the entry requirements for medicine are quite high. They are quite hard, but I imagine most of you, probably all of you, have got these. So you need at least 5 GCSEs that are grade 6, or if you're old school like me, when we had letters B or above. And then most universities would require at least a grade 6 in your English, maths and science. This varies between university to university, and after the talk, or even before the talk, I'm not sure, Gareth will send you guys a Word document that I've made that has the link that I've attached at the bottom of this PowerPoint. That basically is a massive Word document of all the medical schools' different entry requirements. It's all on one page, and it is the most helpful Word document you will ever find. So it just helps break down all the entry requirements for different universities, so you can kind of work out where you're more likely to get in and this, that and the other. Again, A-levels, stereotypically, you need 3 A's. Most universities would like you to at least have an A-level in chemistry and or biology, but the majority require chemistry. I personally didn't have a chemistry A-level, and I found trying to get into a medical school a little bit harder. So it is possible, but it does make your life a lot harder if you don't have a chemistry A-level, I will admit. And then additional things is they're really, really hot on work experience. You could even use what you've been talking about today, the fact that you even attended to this talk, as technically work experience. They love to hear that you've shown an interest early on. And it doesn't even have to be work experience in the healthcare setting. You can apply what you've learned from different scenarios. So some of you might have a part-time job, and that increases, that betters your communication skills, or you have a good time management. You can kind of bend the rules around work experience a little bit. Obviously, if you have some in a healthcare setting, brilliant, that's the gold standard. But I know times have been difficult with COVID. And then again, admissions tests. So that was what the Ucat and the Bmat exams, which I'll go on to explain shortly, and your personal statement. Okay, could I have the next slide, please? Also, I hope I'm not talking too fast. If I'm talking too fast, honestly, just put in the chat, slow down. I won't be offended. So this one is, so I've attached a bit of a screenshot of kind of what I did when I was trying to choose a university. So I made a massive Excel spreadsheet, which you could either see as really, really helpful or really, really sad. It's either or. But I found that just putting all the things that, such as where is the university, how do they teach the course, and what are my odds of getting in, and just seeing it all on one page just made my life a lot easier. So when you're looking at what university you want, like I said, you're there for around 5 years. Try and find somewhere that you're happy to live in, that you would like to experience, that, you know, it's a big part of your life. So I applied to Manchester. I'm originally from Shropshire, which not many people know where it is. So I just told people when I got here I'm from Birmingham, but I found that Manchester was near enough for me to be able to get home if I wanted to pop home for the weekend, or some of you might prefer to just go long haul and go far away from home, which is perfectly fine. And then again, other GCSE requirements, I would just put what they wanted in there and then just coloured it green if I got it, orange if I was on the cusp, or red if there was no hope. And then A-level requirements, kind of what they were expecting there, and so on and so forth. And then looking at the courses, so there are 3 main types that of teaching that universities deliver medicine. So one is called PBL, and you'll see this all over university websites, and no website, as far as I could find, describes it that well. So it's called problem-based learning, and what you do is you go into a room on a Monday, so and you're in a group of 10 of you, and you read through a case. So it's a bit like a story. I don't know, Sally fell over, fractured her hip, and she had this, that done. So you all talk about, okay, so what are the reasons why Sally fell? So what are the mechanisms of falling? So you kind of ask questions about why, what happened, what is a fracture, this, that, and the other. So you try and work out at the start of the week what you don't know. Then you go away for the week, regroup on the Friday, and then you talk about what you learned, and then see if your understanding of the case has gotten any better. So that's kind of how PBL works. TCD is very, very similar. This is called a themed case discussion, and it's you do your learning before the case, and then you look through a case on the end of the week and see if you can understand what's going on. So it might be that some people ask, oh, what investigations would you do at this point? And from the reading you've done during the week, you'd be like, oh, I would do this, that, you know, X, Y, and Z. And then finally, the last way of teaching is through lectures. So some universities mainly teach via lectures. So if you are someone that can sit in a lecture theatre and focus for quite a few hours on a big screen, this works very well for you. I very much struggled with lectures. They're very they're quite intense, but there are some universities that do focus on this, and sometimes it is nice to just be given what you need to know rather than trying to find it out yourself. And then I've put on the end there /dissection. So there are some universities that offer anatomy teaching via dissection. Manchester is one of those, so I've got a bit of experience in what it's like in a dissection lab. Some people find it really creepy, which is understandable. It is a bit creepy when you first go in there. You know, some of us walked in there when we were 18, which is you know, quite a young age to be dissecting bodies, but it is a really helpful way for you to see the anatomy for what it looks like, have a look inside the human body, and it also kind of helps it all make more sense. As anatomy books, generally, it's very hard to try and picture in your mind what anatomy looks like from looking in diagrams and things like that. So some universities offer it, not many, but if any of you are interested in Manchester, Manchester does offer that. And then last factor to consider, and this is a factor that I hate having to talk about, but it is, what are my chances of getting in? So try and find a university that you think you've got a good chance of getting into. So what are your A-levels, what are your GCSEs, and what's your work experience looking like? Do you think you've got a good shot of getting in there? Because it's a very, very competitive field, unfortunately. I'm hoping that times will change soon on this one, but it is something to consider. So my top tip would be, go to as many university open days as you are able to. I know it's difficult, and it might be that some are really far away, or it's expensive to go and find them. There may be ways that you can do almost like a virtual tour on the internet of the campus. Just try and get a feel of what university is like, where you can go around there, and you can ask people who are there on the course, people who teach the course questions directly. Equally, you might be able to find that you are able to email like the admissions teams for different universities, ask questions. This is a big investment of your time. So make sure that you pick someone that's right for you. It's more important that it's right for you than you're right for them. So I found that a good way of choosing a university is pick one university that's your backup option. You think, right, this is the one that I'm going to get into. May not be top location, this, that, and the other, but this will definitely get me onto the course. And then pick 3 universities that you really want, because you're only allowed to apply to 4. So pick 4 that you want, really. I hope that all makes sense. So if we could have the next slide, please, Matthew. Thank you. So these are the exams that I was talking about earlier, the Ucat and the Bmat. So the most common one that they use is the Ucat. It is, unfortunately, a cost, as I said. I had a quick look the other day, and I think it's £70 now. And you're only allowed to sit both of these tests once. So if I assume that all of you are applying for medicine to start in 2024, you would need to sit these exams in the summer of 2023. So you sit it a year before you are due to start the course. Okay, so the Ucat has 5 sections. There's, again, I put at the bottom of this slide the website. If you just put into Google Ucat or the Bmat exams, it'll take you to the pages that you pay and organise them through, and they have a really good like explanation of what those exams are, and they also have practice exams on there, so you can have a look at them, see what they look like, and just kind of get your head around them. But the Ucat is way more common than the Bmat, so this is something else to consider when you're picking your universities. I didn't want to do 2 tests, so I picked all universities that just did the Ucat exam. So the first section is verbal reasoning, so it's almost like you read 3 or 4. You get given loads and loads of passages that are all about 3 to 4 paragraphs in length, and you're asked a question and you don't have that much time to read it. So it's basically trying to work out how quickly can you sift through information and point out the important bits. Then you've got decision making, so it gives you data to interpret, and again, you just answer questions on data. Quantitative reasoning is a fancy word for it. It's a basic maths section. So it's very simple GCSE level maths. With some graph interpretation here and there. And then abstract reasoning is the one that everyone gets a little bit stumped by when you first see it. It does look very, very odd, but it's just being able to spot patterns. So it might be that there's an even number of black shapes on each side or something like that. It's, again, this is something to look on the website and just try and get familiar with. And then the last part is your situational judgment test. So it'll ask you scenarios to say you've gone to work and your colleague smells of alcohol, what are you going to do about it? And again, these are values that the General Medical Council, which are the people who allow us to be doctors, expect of us. So it's testing your understanding of what the GMC require us to be like. So again, if you're looking into what expectations there are of you when you want to become a doctor, it's a good idea to have a little look at the General Medical Council's guidelines, but honestly don't read too much into them. It's all common sense, and again, the situational judgment test is a test that you do time and time again throughout medical school and beyond, so it's quite good to have a good feel of it beforehand. Then the other option is your biomedical admissions test, otherwise known as Bmat. This one, the price varies depending on when you sit the exam. So if you're sitting it nearer to the deadline, it's going to cost you more because they're just a bit harsh about it. And then this is split into 3 sections: thinking skills, which are about problem solving, critical thinking, scientific knowledge and application. This is all GCSE level, so please don't worry too much about this. And then the last one is a writing task, so they'll give you 3 questions and you've got to pick one and write a little essay on it. Bar the writing task, all the sections in the Ucat and the Bmat are multiple choice, so hopefully that eases your mind, but they are quite quick fire exams, so it's worth getting some practice in, but don't go spending loads of money on fancy resources. It's some people have spent so much money on these, and really, the websites that hold these exams give you all you need, to be honest. I wouldn't go spending lots and lots of money on this. Again, a very free resource that people are forgetting about is YouTube. There's so many very, very good YouTube videos that explain these things. There are people who have made vlogs on YouTube about what it's like applying into medical school, getting into medical school. So I'd advise you guys to have a little look at YouTube and just see what people have said about it as well. But base the core part of your knowledge on what the websites for each individual exam say. Okay, next slide, please. So, as I said before, the personal statement isn't super important, but it's something you do have to write. And there's just a few key points that you need to cover, just so they get a feel of who you are if they do read it. So the key things are, so who are you? So talk to them about, if you have any hobbies, pop it in there. They actually quite like to know that you have a good work-life balance, and that you have things that you enjoy and you have passions. So I don't know, some of you might play a musical instrument, some of you are quite sporty, some of you just like going out and hanging out with your friends. Pop these in there and just show them that you're a person. You're not, you know, try and make yourself stand out from the crowd. So if you have a really interesting hobby, whack it in there. And then the key one, and this will come up in your interview as well, is why do you want to study medicine? So medical schools hate very generic answers of I just want to help people. We would like to think that everyone would like to help people if they're going to become a doctor. So try and think of, again, what makes you stand out for the crowd. So what's a really interesting answer to that question? Why do you want to do it? Some of you might find that actually this is a really, really hard question to answer. You don't really know why you want to study medicine, but you do. So it's just trying to work out, okay, well, what do you enjoy? Do you enjoy the fact that you quite like learning about the human body? Do you find it fascinating? Do you enjoy science? Do you enjoy talking to people? Do you like problem solving? And do you work quite well in stressful environments? Do you quite like thriving under pressure? So there's lots of different reasons as to why people want to study medicine. So I would spend the bulk of your personal statement answering that question. And then the last one is your work experience. So this is, again, where you really, really need to show off what you've done. I know it's been a little bit difficult for you guys, especially recently with COVID. And honestly, my sympathy goes with you, because it must be really, really difficult to try and get work experience at the moment. So try and build knowledge from everywhere that you've been. So because I know there are some NHS trusts that still aren't allowing not medical students, allowing people to go there on work experience just because of COVID at the moment. So I know it must be really, really difficult. So some of you, like I mentioned earlier, might have a part-time job. Some of you might volunteer somewhere nearby, or you know, there might be loads of different areas that you've done work experience, or wherever you have gone for your work experience. What did you learn from that? So even though you might be applying for medicine, you might have done work experience in the library, and you can just say, oh, I learned how to organise things, I learned how to help people and assist and communicate effectively with the team, this, that and the other. So they're not interested in saying, I followed a doctor for a day, because that just says that you just followed someone around and you didn't really learn anything. So make sure that you say what you gathered from that. So the key buzzwords that I love to see are, oh, I saw how teamwork happened. I really enjoy being part of a team. Because once you're a doctor, we all work in teams all the time. So you need to show that you quite like being part of a team, or that you work well in a team at least. And the communication skills, as a doctor, you need to be able to communicate what's going on to patients. They quite like doctors that don't talk in a load of jargon and make, you know, confuse them. So just talk about those two in particular. Just say, okay, I understand how a team works. I understand how to communicate well to someone who's poorly. So I hope I have emphasised this point enough. So it's not about what you did, it's about what you learned during your work experience. Okay, next slide again, please. Thank you. And then once you've submitted all that, hopefully you'll get emails that say they want to interview you. This is the hardest bit, I think, is to get an interview. Once you have an interview, it's looking pretty promising at this point. So there are two types of interviewing that medical schools use. There's a panel interview and then the multiple mini interviews, or we call them MMI. The panel interview, not that often used anymore. It's very old school. You sit down and you have, I don't know, 4 or 5 people from the medical school sat in front of you, and then they'll just ask you questions. It's a bit like a job interview. I'm very sorry, I don't have any experience with this one. I only had multiple mini interviews. So it's very, very rarely used these days. But again, it's a similar kind of idea that you're asked very common questions and about your ideas and what you think the course will be like. And then the second option, the MMI, this is the one that most universities, or if not all, probably by the time that you guys will be applying, will be doing. And it's very hard to explain. So you get sent to the medical school for the day. You'll be there with other applicants. So you might be able to meet future course mates that day. And then, say for my Manchester interview, I was there with, I think it was about 10 of us. All had a nice little chat beforehand to try and ease our worries, because it is a bit stressful. And then you would get sent into individual rooms, and outside the room there'll be a card on the door, and it will give you a task to do when you walk through the door. And this is all timed, and they'll tell you when to go in and out and so on and so forth. But you're given about 7 to 10 minutes for each room. So for example, I had one station where it said, you're working in a general practice and you need to design a questionnaire for someone. How are you going to make your questionnaire? And then you have to walk into the room and explain how you would make a questionnaire. And then another one would be outside the station. You're going to be shown a picture and you're going to be sat back to back to someone, and you need to explain the picture well enough that the other person can draw it. That's quite a common one that they do, because they quite like to test how well you can communicate with people. So yeah, so you have about 6 or 10 of those little stations. So the good thing about this is that each station is a different person that's marking you. They don't know how you did on the one before. So if you had a bit of a rough one before that one, they won't know. So just wipe it under the carpet for now and just move on and sort the next one out. And then not all universities do this, but Manchester did. They brought in an actor, where they asked me outside the station to just speak to this lady. And yeah, I'd never spoken to an actor before, pretending to be a doctor when I wasn't. So it was a bit of a weird experience, but you just have to throw yourself in there a bit and just put yourself outside your comfort zone. Everyone else is in the same boat around you. So there are common questions that are asked in interviews. All of these came up in my interviews, and it's good to have a bit of an answer formed in your mind, but try not to, over rehearse and sound a bit robotic with your answer. Have some free flow in there, and improvise a little bit. They don't like people who come with a really formed answer. So again, similar to personal statement, why do you want to study medicine? And then the second one is, how do you relax / maintain a work-life balance? This is one that they really, really were keen on in Manchester. It's quite well known that medicine and being a doctor is quite stressful and is a lot of work. So you need to be able to show that you're able to unwind from all that. So how did you cope with the stress of your Gcses? How did you cope with the stress of your A-levels? What did you do to kind of relax and keep yourself sane during that time? And then tell us about a time that you had to work in a team or under pressure. So try and think of these scenarios in your head, so you're not sat in an interview thinking, oh, I don't know. Just thinking before going, okay, whenever I had to work in a team, what was my role? How did I, help or hinder the process, and what was the outcome of whatever we did with that team? And then under pressure, similar kind of things. How did you cope? How did you do? What did you learn from it if it didn't go that well? And could you do that? What could you do differently in the future? There's nothing wrong with saying, when I worked under pressure the first time, it didn't go that great, but I learned from that. And the next time I was under pressure, I actually did better, because then at least you show that you've done a bit of growth and you learn from things. So don't try and, obviously if you did great the first time, brilliant, you can tell them all about it, but don't lie. Be honest with them and just say how you can learn from these things. They quite like that. There's nothing wrong with saying that you didn't do amazingly well in these scenarios. Then the last one, tell us about your work experience. Sorry, I should have put an R after you. Tell us about your work experience and what did you learn from it. So again, this is just hammering the point that you need to write about what you learned during your work experience, not what you did. That was the more important thing, is what you learned rather than what you actually did. Because a lot of people either have followed doctors or worked in a nursing home. So those are very, very common answers. It's but what you've learned from each experience is very individual, so that's what makes you stand out. Okay, and then I've kind of, if we could put on to the next slide, please. I've kind of left the rest of the session to be a bit of a Q&A, because I imagine a lot of you might have some questions now. So pop yourselves any questions in the chat. I'm more than happy to answer. Equally, if you're happy with what's happened, then sure, you don't need to put anything, but I'm more than happy to answer. Okay. So thank you very much. The first question, I won't say people's names out, I'll try and save you that one, but the first question was about what did I find the most difficult part about applying? So that's a really good question. I think the most difficult part that I found was the doing the admissions exams for the Ucat and the Bmat, just because it's very different to anything I'd ever done before. I'm the only medic in my family, and I come from a very rural country college where not many doctors come from. So I found trying to get information on that really, really difficult. So my advice for you guys is just put in Google Ucat or Bmat, and it will take you to the website that organises these exams. Have a really good read on there. They give lots of really helpful information about how the exam runs, what different sections are, what they test, what they're looking for. It says it all on those websites. And then I'm not too sure about the Bmat, but I know the Ucat definitely has a couple mock papers on there, and you can have a little try of them, have a go, read the mark schemes and just see what they're looking for. So I hope that helps. And then the next one is, do any medical schools accept BTEC or access courses that you, do I know? So I don't know personally, but on the handout that they will send you later, there's a link on there that is to the Medical Schools Council, and it says on there all the different qualifications that they accept. So they do have a section on that does include BTEC and other courses, and some universities will accept them, some won't. So it's worth just having a really good look at that document. I'm sorry, it's a very generic answer, and I would love to be able to help you more on that one, but have a little look on the link that's on the web document that you'll be sent. I hope that helps. And then we have, is it important to have a range of work experiences? So yes and no. Try not to get too bogged down with this. You can have work experiences within, if you've got work experience within a healthcare setting, brilliant, but most universities are aware that that's near on impossible recently. So try not to worry too much about how many different types of work experience you have. You might have one really good experience where you learnt loads from, and I'd focus more on that, or you might have lots of different opportunities where you've learnt different things from. So it's more about the value of a work experience rather than how much you have, if that makes sense. If not, ask another question and just prompt me further, but I hope that makes sense. Is it true that if you fail your GCSE exams, you cannot get a student loan and have to pay for uni? That's something I've never heard of before, so I don't think that that's true. I'm pretty confident that that's not a thing, so I hope that's reassuring. Then, do you have time to get a job whilst doing your medical degree in order to make a bit of money? Yes, is the short answer. My housemate has a part-time job. A lot of my medic friends have part-time jobs, and I managed to have a part-time job earlier on in the degree. It's just how well can you manage your time. It's very, very doable though, and a lot of medics actually have a part-time job because, as you know, university is not cheap. So it's very, very doable. Just make sure either go for jobs that have low contract hours or 0-hour contracts, and that they're actually nice and let you say no if they try and put you on a shift that doesn't fit in with your schedule. So just go for those kind of jobs. A lot of doctors or like other medical students on my course have kind of gone for like a cafe type job or works for the university. That's a job you can get as well. And the university tends to pay students quite nicely actually, and all it is just talking on open days, guiding people around, and I think you get about £10 to £11 an hour. So it might be worth trying to look at a job with the university, or small cafe jobs nearby like Costa, things like that. And then the next one, what A-level grades do you need from biology, chemistry and psychology to do a bachelor's degree in medicine? So it is the standard AAA usually, so you need an A in all of them. And then some universities are lenient. My cohort was the year way back when they changed how A-levels ran, so they were a bit more lenient with my year, because generally across the country we didn't do that well in our A-levels. So I have a few friends that got in with AAB and ABB, but generally you need at least 3 A's, so try and work and make sure that you're getting those 3 A's. And does virtual work experience do fine? Yeah, virtual work experience might actually be really beneficial, and you can try and put a bit of a spin on that and say that as we're moving into a bit more of a virtual world, healthcare's the NHS is actually going more virtual as well. So what did you learn from that? Have you learned that, okay, Zoom can be a bit of a pain, but you've learned how to communicate over the internet, how to be patient, the importance of maintaining confidentiality over using Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So absolutely virtual work experience can be fine. So I hope that helps. And then, do you think doing a second course would be too much? I was thinking about carrying on French alongside medicine. I'm not sure if I'll be overworking myself. Okay, this varies. I can talk about Manchester. So if you're looking at applying to Manchester, they actually do medicine with European studies here. So they actually incorporate it into the course. So you could actually learn French alongside medicine as part of the degree. And they kind of do, I think earlier on in the years, they would do like one teaching session a week where they carried on with French, and then you learned a bit of medicine and French as well. And then towards the end of the degree, you have like a 6-week placement in France where you get to practice your French and medicine at the same time. I wouldn't take out a full-blown course alongside medicine. That would be too much, if I'm being totally honest with you. But you might be able to carry on doing, like online courses or anything like that. But I wouldn't take a full-blown degree as well. So have a look at, if you want to do kind of what Manchester does and teach French as part of the degree, have a look. I'm sure Manchester's not the only one doing that. So I hope that helps you. Could you also provide a little bit of information about graduate route? Are GCSEs just as important? I thought we might have a grad somewhere. Of course. So one of my closest friends is a graduate that's just got into medicine herself. So I've seen how this process works, and there's a couple options available to you. One is that you go for graduate entry medicine, which I've heard can be really, really, really competitive. And different to the Ucat and Bmat exams, they have a separate one for graduates called a GAMSAT, which you'd have to sit if you went for graduate entry medicine, which is just a bit more of hardcore Ucat, to be honest. And then you could apply for the main medical degree, so kind of join the cohort of people who are leaving school, and you sit the Ucat and Bmat exams and kind of do the exact same as what everyone else would be doing. So GCSEs, they'll probably be looked at, but if you have a degree that's a first-class degree, that's going to trump your GCSEs. They look at your whole application, so try not to worry too much if your GCSEs aren't, your very classic stereotypical medical student. If it helps you, I have 4 Bs and a C in my GCSEs, and so I don't really fit the typical mold of straight A student. So I hope that gives you a bit of reassurance there. And then, do you think doing an EPQ helps your application? Some medical schools look at it, a lot of them don't, if I'm being perfectly honest. If I be that person that sends you back to the Medical School Council website that's on the Word document that you'll get later. Some of them say like, oh yeah, we'll look at an EPQ and it might favour your application a little bit, but to be honest, most of them don't. So if you have a choice of whether to, do that at college or not, I'd focus on just getting your grades. Don't overexert yourself for it. But yeah, have a little look. And then we've got someone replying about the GCSE or student loan question earlier. But yeah, we'll see what they say about that. I'm sorry, I don't know too much about that one. How hard is bachelor's degree in medicine? Medicine is known for being a hard course, but it's very, very doable. It's very rewarding, but to be honest, any university degree is difficult. It's a step up. I'm sure if some of you are doing your A levels now, you've noticed that it was quite a step up from GCSEs, and again, it's a step up again. But it's very, very doable. Big majority of people who start the course walk out the other side. I think Manchester, there's about 450 of us in my cohort, and over 5 years, I think we've only 20 people have left, if that. So it's very, very, very doable. A lot of universities provide loads of support. They know that people find that it can be a hard degree, so there's loads and loads of support out there if you do end up struggling. So I hope that that's reassuring. I've personally found it okay. There will be difficult periods such as exams, which you all be used to at this point with your GCSEs and upcoming A levels and so on and so forth. And if some of you are graduates, then you know what university exams look like, but it's very, very doable. And then what is EPQ? So this is something that you do back in school, and it's basically, I apologise if this is wrong, but you write up a bit of a research project. So I didn't do an EPQ, but I had friends do. And I think you write a bit of a essay, and then you have to present it on a topic of your choice. It's something that your school will probably talk to you about if they do offer it. I'm sorry if that's a really generic and rubbish answer. I do apologise. And then have we got any other questions? This is brilliant that you're all asking so many questions, but if you have any more, feel free to ask. I promise I am friendly.
Just whilst we wait for more questions, just going back to the question about whether they accept BTECs or access courses. So most medical schools don't accept BTEC, or if they do, they usually want it alongside either a biology or a chemistry A level. But there is a newer qualification known as a T level that's they're doing for biomedical science and I believe healthcare. If that's the route that you are thinking of taking, which are accepted into medical school. So if I would look into T levels, if you were thinking of that.
Here we go. Alrighty. Where can you find resources for Bmat and Ucat? So there's the websites that organise the exams directly. You can look on there. Some local libraries actually, I think, offer this, but there are some books that can help you prepare for them. Again, I'd really emphasise, please do not spend loads of money on these things. There are some people that go really overboard and spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds to try and get through these exams, and then there's people who spend nothing and get through just fine. So please don't go overboard with this. There are also some websites that offer like mock exams, but they are about 20 quid or so. So it's up to what you're willing to take, but I would recommend going to the websites directly, having a good read on there, having a look at the example exams on there, and maybe using one other resource, and do no more than that. Otherwise you're going to start getting yourself confused. But if you are going to look at books in particular for these kind of exams, make sure it's a recent book. They have changed during my time of being in medical school. They're slightly different to what I did only five or yes, 5 years ago. That's awful. So just have a look, make sure that it's current and up to date. So it might be better to use a website resource actually, and just make sure that they're good advice. But yeah, use the website that organizes it and maybe one other resource. Pop it into Google and there will be loads of options. Just make sure that if it's anything more than 15, 20 quid, you're being ripped off. Don't go for any more than that. Equally, if you don't want to spend money, which I would very much push, there's loads of YouTube videos on it and all sorts. So it just takes a little bit of digging around. And then, does work experience have to be long term, or can it just be a few days shadowing a doctor, or both? Can be both. It can be either or. When I was applying to medical school, I had 2 or 3 weeks worth of work experience over 2 years. So it's just the point of, it's not how much you've done, it's what you've learned. So if you spent, say, those few days that you spent shadowing a doctor, what did you learn from that? Did you see loads? Did you felt like you learned a lot, had a lot of insight into what a doctor, what that job entails? So it's just more what you learned rather than how much you've done. I hope that makes sense. Was medicine something I always wanted to pursue? What influenced you to choose medicine instead of another career? Okay. Was medicine something I always wanted to pursue? Short answer is no. Funny enough, originally wanted to be a vet. I love animals, and then I realised that I wouldn't be able to cope very well if I had to put an animal down. So it's something that when I was applying for medical school, I was very fortunate. I went to a college where I had one teacher that just said to me one day, "What's the harm in applying?" And I thought, okay, we'll give it a go. But the things that influenced my choice to be a doctor instead of another career is I found learning about the human body really fascinating. So I did psychology and biology A level, and I think I saw someone else put in the chat that they have a psychology A level. I just found it fascinating how we work and like what a person does, because we're all really complex beings, and yet we're all sat here. Sometimes we sit in here and we're thinking of absolutely nothing. I just find that fascinating. And then I love talking to people. I love helping others. I love being part of a team, and I enjoy working under pressure, and I like making like problem solving. So I quite like doing all those things. So those are the kind of things that made me think, oh, medicine's a good career. And then, oh, I think we've got someone with a microphone on. But yeah, so those are the kind of things that I thought of. And then I couldn't really think of what other career I wanted to go down. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. So those are the kind of things that I thought of. A common question that has come up in interviews, which maybe I should have mentioned earlier, is some medical schools will ask you, why do you want to be a doctor and not a nurse? This comes up and this really stresses people out. Because essentially you're both healthcare professionals, you're both caring for patients at the end of the day. So what's the difference? Why do you want to be a doctor instead of a nurse? I looked at nursing degrees myself. I thought about it. And the reason that I chose medicine over nursing is because I wanted to get involved in the diagnostic side of things. I wanted to be the one making decisions, working out the problems. And so those are the kind of things that you need to think about, because that question might come up, and I don't want it to trump you there and then and think, oh, how do I answer this without, making nursing sound bad or this, that, and the other. It's just the different roles, so just be aware of that. Then, in total, from finishing A levels, how long would it take to become a surgeon? A long time. So once you finish your A levels, if you go into medicine, you're looking at 5 years of doing university, and then you become something what we call a junior doctor. Junior doctor's 2 years, so we're up to 7 years at this point. And then if you want to become a surgeon, that's when you start saying, okay, you apply for jobs that train you to be a surgeon, and then those jobs can range from 6 to 10 years. But so overall, you're probably looking at about 10 to 15 years to become a fully qualified surgeon. That doesn't mean that you don't get to operate and for another 15 years. That means that you probably wouldn't be allowed to operate until at least 5, 7, about 8, 9 years from now, say. So when you're training to be a surgeon, you go through something called Registrar Training, and then that's when you have someone that's higher up than you kind of make sure that you're doing things right, so you'll be supervised whilst operating, so on and so forth. So it is a long time to become a surgeon, and I know that probably looking at this from now, you're thinking, wow, that is a very, very long time. But it does go a lot quicker than you think. I thought 5 years of medical school was like going through secondary school all over again, and it's gone much, much quicker. So please don't let that dishearten you, because I know it does sound like a very, very long time. And then what's the difference between nurse and doctor? So again, they both work as part of the medical profession. They both work as working for patient care. Nurses are more for supportive care. So if any of you have been unfortunate enough and ended up staying in hospital, you'll find that you have more interaction with nurses than you ever did with doctors. And they are absolute saints in the background of NHS. They are fabulous. So they're more there for the patient. They kind of do the patient's needs, make sure that, say you're the doctor that prescribes some fluids, they'll help put the fluids up for you, do OBS. So they kind of keep a good eye on everything. Whereas a doctor, your role is more finding the problem, treating the problem, and kind of being more the go-to point in a team. So if a nurse has a concern, they will come to you, and it's your job to make sure that the problem is solved, really. So if you like problem solving, a doctor's a better role. Then want to go into obs and gynae, good choice. How long will it take? I'm in Gcses level right now. It seems hard. Yes, it does seem harder, I'm sorry. So obs and gynae, great choice. I quite enjoyed obs and gynae. So if you're in GCSEs at the moment, so you have 2 years to do your A levels after your GCSEs, 5 years of medical school, so you're looking at 7 years, and then your 2 years of foundation junior doctor training, so that's we're on to 7 now already. Obs and gynae is technically classed, I think there's a medical and a surgical specialty, so it's very, very similar to the previous question kind of time frame. So you're looking at about 15 years from now for you to be a fully qualified obs and gynae consultant. So the highest you can get if you go for those kind of jobs would be consultant level, but you could be working in obs and gynae full time in about 9 years from now. You could probably be working full time in obs and gynae training. So I hope that makes sense. But throughout medical school, you'll have time going to obs and gynae. When you're a junior doctor, you might have an obs and gynae job. I found out my jobs the other day, and I actually have an obs and gynae job, so I'll be there for 4 months. So it takes a lot, and you might find that when you go to medical school, you might change your mind and decide that you actually hate obs and gynae and you want to do something else. So I hope that's not too disheartening. I hate talking about the timeframes of things because it does sound so long, but really it does go quite quick, and you do get time doing all these things that you are interested in. Then how easy is it to cope financially during a medical degree? It's all about budgeting. Medicine, unfortunately, is a course that does have extra costs associated with it. One of those costs being that travel to placements. Some universities, such as Cardiff, will make you travel the breadth of Wales to go to your placement. So they might offer you some help towards that, but you know, you go to university in Cardiff and you might end up somewhere on the North Wales coast. So that's something to consider when you're looking at universities. Manchester, the furthest I've been sent is Wigan. So it's kind of how much travelling you need to do to get to your placement and back. So if you have a car, funding a car, if not public transport, there's lots of different transport links. So Manchester, if a placement is more than, I think, 10 miles from campus, they give us a bursary to kind of help us with our travel budgeting. And I'm sure other universities will do this as well. They will give you some bursary money towards traveling if it's a certain distance away. But you will hopefully all get a student loan. And then that's based off your household income at home. So if your parents have quite well paying jobs, you'll get less of a loan. And then if your parents have jobs that, you know, don't have the biggest salary, then you will be given a higher loan to help you through your degree. And then also some universities offer offer bursaries. So you can apply for a bursary direct from the university, and they can give you, I think it's about up to £3,000 a year. And a bursary you don't have to pay back. So that's basically £3,000 of free money for you. And again, you can get part-time jobs. It's very, very doable. So I would recommend going to university, make a bit of a budget spreadsheet. I'm a big fan of Excel, as you can probably tell at this point, but it's very important to just keep an eye on where your money's going, because it's very easy. And a lot of people did this when they first came to uni. They get their student loan and suddenly they have thousands in their account and they get really excited and just blow it all really quickly. So just kind of budget, right? How much do you roughly have a week or a month, and just try your best to stick to that. Shop at the cheaper shops. So I go to like Lidl, Aldi and all that. So it's very, very doable. It's just, it'll take you time to adapt, because I'm sure if you're asking this question, you might still be living at home and you haven't had to, you know, adapt to financially coping on your own. So it's just something that you'll learn a bit through experience, but I hope that that makes sense. When do you apply for a student loan? So say you would be going to university September 2024, you would apply for your student loan a couple of months beforehand. So you can't fully apply for your student loan until you've been guaranteed a place on the course. So start filling out your application early on in the year. And when you apply to university, you apply through this portal called Ucat, which will send you a reminder of when you should be applying for student loans. So try not to worry too much about that. You will be pinged a reminder about when to do it. And then once you started your application with student finance, they will then send you emails on what you need to do to make sure you stay on top and stay on time for things. They're very kind, and they always put deadlines in bold and make it very big. So it's very, very easy to follow. And then, can you get a student loan for all 5 years, and how easy to balance a medical degree with a part-time job? So yes, you can get a student loan for all 5 years. However, your final year, student loan will only give you a very, very good amount for the first 4 years, and then the fifth year, this drops, and then you get a bursary from the NHS, which kind of almost balances out. So you don't lose any money, you just end up getting paid from the NHS bursary as well, which that is something you really do not need to worry about at the moment. Your medical school will help you with that. And then how easy to balance a medical degree with a part-time job? Like I say, it's all about time management. If you're someone that you know is very good at managing their time, you will be absolutely fine. It's very, very doable. Pick a job, 0-hour contract or very, very low hour contract. And generally, if it's like jobs near a university, they're going to understand that you're a student, so they'll try. They're generally quite good. But I have loads and loads of friends who have part-time jobs with their medical degree, and they've coped just fine. So yeah, apply for your student loan after college. Don't worry about that yet. And then I hope that that answers everyone's questions. I'm cautious we're coming up to 10, so if anyone has any last-minute burning questions, throw them in. I think that would be a question for you, Matthew. Do you get certificates for attending?
I believe so, but I don't think it'll be straight away. It may be in a couple of weeks. But short answer, yes, you will.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to assume there's no more questions. If anyone pops one in last minute, I'll answer it. But if not, thank you very, very much for listening. I hope this was helpful. And as I said, you'll be sent a Word document that I've written a while ago that has some helpful links and just summarises this all again for you. So you've got a point to reference to. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day. And yeah, I hope that was helpful.